What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View Podcast. Today's guest is one of the most dominant forces in professional wrestling. He is known as the Machine for his power, his intensity, and his presence inside the ring. And as the reigning UPW champion, Sampson has built a reputation of just running through competition. We are going to talk surgeries. We're going to talk ass kickings. We're going to talk it all. Let me introduce the man of the hour, Mr. Sampson. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, man. Good. How are you?
I am good. For people that might be living under a rock and aren't as familiar with you as they should be, maybe they're discovering you for the first time. Who is...
Man, just a dude who really doesn't have time to mess around, you know? No time to play. I take everything I do pretty seriously.
I love it. I love that. I know you were a football player. You were a multi-sport athlete. You have a very athletic background. What first made you fall in love with professional wrestling, and when did that bug kind of bite you?
Well, probably around 1984, 85, you know, like the birth of Hulkamania. If you would have asked me I was born in 1981, so I'm a little bit older, but if you would have asked me at 5 years old, what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said Hulk Hogan, not even like a wrestler. I just wanted to be that dude. So my whole life has kind of been like geared towards finding my way here. It took a while. I'm from a very small kind of remote area, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There are not a lot of wrestling schools around here. But I finally did it, after years of amateur wrestling and football and mixed martial arts and all that. But that's what got me into wrestling in the first place, sitting in like third grade and getting the flyer for youth wrestling. And I'm like thinking a ring and like costumes and belts and the shit I see on TV. And like, so we go and it's not that. There's mats and a pair of shoes and you're working hard. But I got sold on the idea because it was like, well, this is amateur wrestling. You have to do this before you're professional is literally what I was told at that young age. So I just stuck with it, hung in there.
Right.
With this kind of being my end goal all along.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you next is, I've heard you say before that your path to the business took a little bit longer than you would have liked. It took some twists and some turns. Can you talk about a little bit, and you just kind of touched on it a bit, but can you tell us a little bit more about kind of your path into the business? Like, how did you find your way in eventually?
Okay, so this is kind of a long story. Where I'm from up here in Marquette, about 20 miles south is a little town called Scandia, Michigan. And it's in Marquette County, and kind of the claim to fame, like our local celebrity up here for years was a guy named Mike Shaw, who wrestled for Stampede Wrestling up in Calgary back when it was like the Stu Hart promotion as Makan Singh. He wrestled in the WCW as Norman the Lunatic and Trucker Norm. And then he wrestled in WWE or F at the time as Friar Ferguson, like one or two matches, and then Bastion Booger was kind of what he was known for. So back in the mid 90s, he trained my dad one summer. Where he would be home in the summertime, or when he was home in the summertime, he would train people. And they ended up doing a show up here in I think it was like 96 or something like that. Anyways, I'm obviously at the show. Also at the show was a kid named Peter Sisko. Peter Sisko, fast forward, becomes Peter Be Beautiful. I moved back to the UP from Indianapolis in like 2012, 13, and I get a Facebook message from Peter Be Beautiful, asking me if I was the Youper, because me and my dad shared the same name. Our real name is the same. I'm junior, he's senior. And I'm like, no, man, that's not me. That's my dad. But this is the first time in my life anyone's ever asked me about this. Like he did one match. That was it. And he's like, man, we were sitting front row, me and my friend Rick. And those are essentially the two guys that started UPW 25 years ago. Come to find out, Rick was the kid. My dad came out to the ring with an apple and he's like peeling it with his hunting knife. He's dressed like a Youper, you would say. And he's like eating the apple, and he gave the core of the apple to some kid and then signed it afterwards. He still had that in his freezer. It was like this huge moment in their lives. So that kind of like put UPW on the map for me. At the time, I was still doing MMA. And my MMA career kind of wound down because at like 34, 35-ish, I had to have my left hip resurface, which is basically similar to a replacement surgery. They just take less of the bone out. So my ability to really train at that kind of pace and intensity really wasn't there anymore. So then you fast forward a couple of years later, it's like 2019. I find a school in Wisconsin, maybe 2020. It was during the pandemic, honestly. The Dojo of Pain, and I start training down there. And shortly after I started training, the following like Tuesday in the gym, some random Tuesday, I'm benching. I'm not even doing like a big bench day, and I completely tear my pec, like just blow it right off of the muscle, the tendon. So that was a surgery that took some time to recover from. I did recover pretty fast. Got right back to it. And then when the world kind of opened up again, UPW started running, and reached out to Pete and let him know I had been training. And he was like, holy shit, come to the next show. And from there, it kind of started. They've been really good to me, helping with my career as far as my ability to learn at a fast rate, by kind of always booking me with good veterans. Like the first guy was Silas Young, and
Right.
he's awesome. He's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, my fourth match ever was a main event in front of about 900 people for the UPW heavyweight title, in my hometown, which I did not go over in that match, but it was against Silas Young. And I mean, I'll be honest, he had to kind of walk me through that, but nobody could know. Nobody knew in the crowd. Nobody looked at it like, oh man, you're so green. Like this guy had to do everything for you, but no, he's awesome. I've got to work with him a couple of times. Guys like Matt Winchester, Jay De Niro, who trained me in Wisconsin there at Dojo Pain. He's now at OVW, TW3.
Right.
Those guys like that, they've been super good to me, and I'll never forget that stuff. It's helped me kind of speed up my process.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at your list of matches. I mean, it is a who's who of people you've stood across the ring from. One thing I wanted to touch on, obviously, when it comes to gimmicks, you've been known as the Machine, and looking at your surgical history, you might be part machine at this point.
Pretty much.
How much of that character, because we kind of talked about it, when we first got on here, who is Sampson? Who is the Machine? It's kind of just an ass kicker that just doesn't take any shit and does what needs to be done. How much of that character is I don't want to say a work, but how much of that character is kind of fluff, and how much of you, the real person, is inside that character?
A lot of it. The main difference is I'm, like Sampson really doesn't give a shit. He'll do whatever. I have a little bit more of a conscience. I only do those types of things when the situation really calls for it. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as, kind of my, I don't know what to call it, the aura, the mystique of the character, that's kind of just me. I'm just like, I don't even want to say turned up a little bit, because I'm not like real rah-rah or real loud. It's more of a stoic type thing. But, when I wrestled back in the day, I stared people down the same way, like I was that same just ice cold, kind of cerebral, kind of killer, and, I was good, man. I was successful with that. And so I just kind of roll with it and maybe take it a little bit further, you couldn't really break rules and stuff back then. So, now I break the rules sometimes, and, maybe be a little bit overly aggressive at other times and things like that. I would say in real life, I'm not nearly as opportunistic to dominate somebody as I am. I'm a little bit nicer of a person, and people would say I'm pretty chill, and probably most people would tell you I'm pretty easy to deal with.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. I like that. Maybe not quite as apt to punch somebody in the face in real life. Maybe, unless situation calls for it.
I mean, I have,
altogether.
I have. So,
talking about being pretty good, you're pretty good at this pro wrestling thing too. Obviously, you're the reigning, defending UPW champion.
Yep.
Been that way for damn near 800 days. You kind of talked about that being your home promotion. What has that championship meant to you? From this is great to be the champion, but, a lot of fans don't even realize that when you're the champion, it's because that company believes in you. They want you to be at the forefront. When people think UPW, they want them to think of you. What has that meant to you?
Yeah, it means a lot. This belt means a lot. You know, I've taken it all over the place with me. And just like you said, it absolutely, you know, some people will sit there and say a belt is nothing more than a prop, but I don't believe that. You know, when somebody puts it on you, keeps it on you, lets you take it over almost 30,000 miles across the country and back to defend it in different promotions outside of UPW, that just tells you that they believe in you, that they trust you, and that they think you are the right person to be the face of that company. You know, and that's what I've been for the last over 2 years with UPW as a baby face and a heel. So, you know, forever grateful for what it's done and how it's helped me, and you know, gets people to notice you. Like me being the UPW heavyweight champion is what got the Indie Wrestling Experience podcast guys to notice me, and I've been ranked on their top 25 power rankings list for over a year. I think I broke in around like 22 or something like that first, like last May, and I climbed the ranks where the last 4 months I've been number one. So, you know, all that stuff kind of works together, you know, like me going on the road with this thing, people in Los Angeles seeing the belt, people in Houston seeing the belt, people in Vegas seeing the belt, and not once or twice, but multiple times in each place. You know, that's just exposure for the company, right? It's like, it just puts more eyes on that product. You know, the belt helps me get recognized outside of the promotion. You know, I was in the Bring on the Bully show that I was just on in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. I didn't defend it, but I was announced as the UPW heavyweight champion. I wore the belt out to the ring when I did my thing on my part on the show that night. And the next day I defended it for Roxy Astor's Afterglow in the Knox Pro Arena in Los Angeles, where Rikishi School is. Had a really great show that they do for helping out the dogs and the cats that are in the the animal shelters in California, trying to keep the animals off death row, if you will, keeping them from getting euthanized, trying to find them homes. So, you know, it's been cool. It's like, tell me another champion in the Midwest, one that's had the belt for over 2 years, and another that's traveled 30,000 miles with it and been able to defend it against people like Super Beast and the Anomaly Alex Ace and freaking Techno Destructo, aka Hunter Jackson from Guar. You know, like, come on, it's pretty cool. So yeah, it's been a good run. Someday it'll end, and we all know that. But for now, staying right here.
It's not today. It might be someday, but that day is not today.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that. We were going to go somewhere else, but I want to make a little pit stop here. You talked about that Bring on the Bully show.
Yeah.
There might have been a little bit of tomfoolery that happened. Can you lay out for the people that may have missed that show? What exactly was Sampson's role in that show?
Yeah, I was brought out there to be the special guest enforcer for the main event between the Epic and Slice Boogie. You know, so I just did my job. I did what I was brought in to do. Sometimes I get sick of people whining and bitching and, you know, take matters into my own hands, go into business for myself, if you will. And either way, I think it got me a booking on their next show. You know, some people weren't happy with what I did. There's video of it out there. Some people didn't think it was very cool of me, and now they want to seek revenge for their friends. I think those people, they might be biting off a little more than they can chew. You know, sexy BJ Ray, he's got a big name, but he ain't bigger than me, boy. And I will give him a lesson in professional wrestling on July 17th in Los Angeles, California, when he wants to call me out for what I did to his friend. He's going to learn, like anybody else that's called me out, anybody else that's wanted a shot at me or my title. This will not be for the title, but I mean, unless they want me to defend it, I will. No, it's not like I'm scared. But yeah, I'll teach him the same lesson I've taught everybody else. You know, you call me out, that tells me that you think you can beat me. And if you think you can beat me, I'm going to prove you wrong in kind of the most, you know, dominant ways possible. I'm going to show you, like, not only could you not beat me, but you can't even stand up to me. You can't measure up. You can't hang with me in any aspect. So
I love it. And that is when is that show? July 17th in LA. Is that right?
Yeah, Los Angeles, California, the Compound. It's I think the Dirt Dog Compound or something like that. Again, you can go to Bring on the Bully on Instagram. They have all that information out there. they haven't announced that match yet, but they will be soon. And looking very much forward to that.
Absolutely. Love it. I'm definitely, that's going to be amazing. If you're in the area, guys, make sure to go check that out. Something that wasn't quite as amazing was your hips. We kind of talked about it a little bit. Obviously, you've had to have now, I think it's a couple hip replacement surgeries. Is that right?
Yeah, man. The first one back in my mid-30s, just I played football for a long time. It's pretty common for like people that played the positions that I played to kind of have this misshapen femoral head, which causes uneven wear and tear. And then you take into account that was kind of like my pivot foot for, where you're snapping for your punches and like your kicks and stuff like that.
Right.
So just kind of grounded in like a corkscrew and it was bone on bone. So I had that done. And my right one wasn't great at the time. Knew it would need to be done at some point, but I just pushed it. And then October of 24, I was in a match and I actually broke my pelvis. And that injury basically forced the hip replacement at that point. It was like it was just that they're going in there, they might as well do that too because everything was all smashed up.
Yeah.
I had to wait like 90 days because I had just gotten a cortisone shot in that hip like 3 days before the injury. So when you get a cortisone shot in a joint, they won't operate on it for 90 days. So I was on crutches for that 90 days. Like I couldn't walk. But I still fulfilled all my bookings. I wrestled 4 times like that. So lidocaine is a gift.
And that goes right back to that machine moniker.
Yeah.
You're living the gimmick, brother.
Yeah.
To go back to the first hip injury, when did you realize something was seriously wrong? Because obviously, as a football player, as a mixed martial artist, you're kind of taught like you're always going to be in pain to push through it. But when did you know, like, hey, something is really wrong?
Yeah, when I would just be in so much pain just walking that I'd be like sweating profusely and short of breath because it was like every step was like toe curling, bone on bone type pain. And plus, I'm a big guy. At the time I'm 275 now, but at the time I was over 300 pounds. Like I was probably like 330 at that point. So yeah, it was like it was very painful, and I can deal with pain. Like I said, I wrestled 4 times with that injury. I came back and wrestled 3.5 weeks after the hip replacement surgery last year. So I can definitely deal with pain. And when I can't move or walk, it's pretty bad. And that's when I just gave in and was like, okay, let's do this. Let's get this done. And, but after about a year, everything's pretty normal again. And I've been able to lift, squat, deadlift, all that stuff with the first one. I haven't gotten that far back into the lower body stuff, or at least heavy with my right one yet, but it's been just a little bit more than a year. I'm kind of building into that right now. As far as in the gym prior, it was just kind of working into it with some leg presses, leg extensions, leg curls. Now I'm doing more of the hip hinging and like RDLs, straight legged deadlifts, getting a little bit of deadlifts in there with the trap bar, some squats, not all the way, but like to boxes and whatnot. So starting to build that back, get it nice and strong so I can keep this train moving for another 10 years or so.
Well, you know what? And that kind of leads me to my question. Obviously, I've spoken to a lot of athletes, a lot of MMA athletes, UFC guys, football players, professional wrestlers. A lot of them share the sentiment that injuries like that, especially joints, your hip, the rehab obviously physically is taxing, but it's just as much emotionally taxing to be on the sidelines and having to watch your friends and peers keep on working and you're just sitting there on the couch because you physically can't move. How hard was it for you from that from that sense in the mental game? How tough were those injuries?
Well, you see, my first one, it was just a normal thing. Like I was done fighting. So it was just like recover, right? And then a year later, I was like, well, let's see how this goes. Went back to the kickboxing gym and could do everything but except for kind of that hard step and pivot. And then I found out about a semi-pro football team they had up here. So I went and joined that team and played a whole season. Ended up being the lineman of the year in the conference and actually even played some running back in the All-Star game. So my hip was good. I was like back to normal at like 35 years old playing football, full contact football. But the second one, like again, the first one, I didn't really have anything that I was missing out on. It was just like time to recover. The second one, it was like a lot of anxiety going into the show because I wasn't going to miss anything. Like I started wrestling late. Like I'm not about to miss a single shit. Like if I am not in a hospital or incredibly ill where I think I'll get someone else sick, I'll be at a show and I'll work through whatever. And I've proven that over and over again with UPW because I didn't miss anything. I worked, I think 2 days before my hip replacement, I worked a freaking match, a 2-on-1 handicap match in freaking Canada, like against the Digglers. I did a double choke slam on those dudes with not even being able to stand, but, my wife at the time, she was a nurse, might have been able to get a little bit of lidocaine brought home and some long needles. And I would just get it done, stick that into the joint, numb it up for 30, 40 minutes and go out there and do my job. So I know it sounds crazy, but I'm from like a totally different era. And again, like I'm not missing an opportunity. Every opportunity is an opportunity to grow and to get better and to learn. And I needed to do that as fast as humanly possible. So I literally scheduled my surgery like just under 4 weeks out from a show. Like it was like the farthest out I could get it, essentially, with the 90-day thing. And my whole goal, like I was up walking that day. I mean, I was moving and I worked my ass off through physical therapy to where I was like, yeah, guys, I'm wrestling a match this weekend. And they thought I was crazy, but I said, it's like, it's all right. I did it. Took a body slam, and it was with Jay De Niro. So like, I wasn't about to miss that. I freaking love that dude. It was like, I had to get that one checked off the list. So, and by
you're absolutely a mad. Yeah, you're absolutely a madman. Let's just establish that. But
hey, you, watching this right now. I see you. If you're enjoying what you're watching, I've got one quick favor to ask, and it only takes a second, costs you nothing, and makes a huge difference. If you could go ahead and hit that like button, maybe drop a comment. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. Doesn't seem like much, but for small creators, it's everything. So let's help more people find this channel and keep the content coming. And honestly, I'm pretty sure the podcast will be really grateful. So if you're having fun, you like what you see, make it official, click those buttons. And the Fans View podcast, we'll see you next time.
But commendable nonetheless. I saw in my research, and I mean, hearing about how much of a crazy person you are as far as rehabbing and coming back from injury, I saw that doctors told you after that second one that your wrestling career might be over. How true is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still here going strong. They actually, I think that was just all part of the story. The truth of it is, with the hips now, like the reason they did the resurfacing when they did is because of my age, and they say it's like you get more out of it and they'll last longer and whatnot. But this one, I kind of was like, should I get this one resurfaced or replaced? And the doctors were like, well, with the hip replacements now. And I was like, I said, whatever I was doing before? And he said, yeah. I said, so getting back into the ring and wrestling? He's like, at your discretion. I said, all right. I've taken bumps. I mean, I drop elbows. Like I don't, I land on it. Gets a little sore at times. I wouldn't say it's 100% yet, but it's good enough.
Hey, I respect it. As we kind of transition over to the indie grind, which I want to talk to you about, what do you think is something fans don't necessarily know about the independent wrestling lifestyle that you would love to shed light on?
Well, that's a good question. What would I like to shed light on for the fans? You know what?
Let me change that for you. Let me make it easier. Let me make it easy for you. Easier. What's the toughest part of being an independent wrestler at the level you're at? Because obviously it's not glitz, it's not glamour,
right.
It's not, you're grinding right now. What's the toughest part though for you?
So for me personally, right? So if anyone's watching this and you want to, or when you guys are watching this, don't want to say it like that. Look on a map at Marquette, Michigan. Look where it is, okay? It sits on the south shores of Lake Superior, like pretty much dead center of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. UPW is the only promotion in the Upper Peninsula. So for me to work anywhere else, right, I have a minimum 3-hour drive. Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, where I go tomorrow, is 3 hours away. Green Bay is about 3 hours away. Appleton's about 3.5. Then you get down to Milwaukee's 5, Chicago's 6, Detroit's 7. And then Minneapolis you have is about 7.5 hours. So those are like the cities within driving range for me. So for me to do, like to work every weekend or something, it would be kind of hard. That's like, especially kind of up and coming, right? Like promoters are just going to pay you a rate, and it's not going to be a great rate until you kind of establish yourself and show that you can perform and get the job done, and maybe even are causing a little buzz. So not only do they not really, independent wrestling shows don't make a ton of money, hardly any money, so it's not like there's an abundance to go around. But at the same time, they don't want to pay some guy that's like 2 years into the business that's, wrestled way less than anybody else because he's in the UP, and like go ahead and not only pay you to come down and work, but let me go ahead and pay your gas, because in those cities, there's guys all over that can work, and until you get in front of them, until they see you, they see my size, which, I'm 6'6". That's real. I'm 275 to 285 pounds, depending on the day. Those are real numbers. So when you put me on a wrestling show, there's like, I've been on a show with maybe 2 people taller than me. I think Congo Khan's like 6'8", and I think Alex Ace is almost 7 foot tall. But no offense to either of those guys, the build that I have is much bigger, or more muscular, and who else is out there that's really taller than me? Ben Bishop. So, and again, my frame, like, I stand next to some of the biggest guys you'd see on TV, and I make them look small, so it's like I had to get in front of people. I had to do, and I know a lot of people come out of their pocket to do this stuff, but a lot of people aren't making a minimum like 7, 8. Like if you live in Milwaukee and you got to drive to Waukesha and come out of your pocket, like no big deal, right? Or if you got to go to Green Bay, that's like a couple hours, no big deal, right? But I'm driving 8 hours one way, so then it comes into like, then do you turn around and drive back, or do you get a hotel? Because nobody's going to be putting me up in a room either until you're worth it. So those have been like the challenges for me, is just, one, getting booked outside of the Upper Peninsula, because again, people know how far you're coming, and I feel like they sometimes almost feel obligated that they should like, do a little more for you, and then they just can't or don't want to. So it's just like you don't even get like much of a conversation in. Thankfully now though, I've got promotion in Detroit, SCW that's behind me, and I've been working for NWA Chicago. Got some pretty exciting stuff happening with that here in the near future. So I'm getting out there locally, right? In the Midwest. But also one of the things that I've been able to somehow do that a lot of guys from the area aren't, that don't have like a giant social media following. Again, like some of those guys out there that have like 20s and 30s and 40s of thousands of followers, and they're indie guys. Like, yeah, those guys get flown all over the place. But, since November, I've been to California 3 times. I'm going back a 4th time in July, a 5th time in August. Again, down to Texas, Nevada, Las Vegas. So like that's pretty cool to me when somebody's like, hey, we want you to come out and we're going to like fly you out here. Like that tells me that, even with my booking fee now with my booking fee included, that's expensive. It's a pretty penny, and it's like, it's, for an indie show, it's like, okay, like I help run an indie show. I help with UPW kind of behind the scenes with some stuff. So I know the costs that are involved with that stuff. And yeah, it's like, okay, what I did for myself prior is paid off this way. I've been able to get myself out there, been able to meet people, get in front of people, which gets you more exposure, which then other people see you and they're like, hey, we want to check this guy out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you just rattled off so many things that we could consider a wrestling bucket list. Like obviously you're working on the West Coast, you're working Vegas, you're working the Midwest, you're going to be out here on the East Coast in a couple months. What goals would you say, and it doesn't have to be a bunch of them, you can just name a couple, but what goals are still on your wrestling bucket list?
So I started this year with getting booked with the NWA. That happened in like January. So that was like a quick one. I would really like to somehow get some traction in Japan. I feel like with my size, that would be a possibility to make some money over there with my size and my look. I would like to get down to Mexico. I know I need to learn a little bit of like the lucha style to go down there with those guys. But again, I feel like my size benefits me with that. And overall, I don't sit here with like grandiose delusions of, being the next WWE champion, right? I'm 44 years old. But I do feel like I've got enough of a look and enough ability, and I've worked with some talented people that like guys like Matt Riddle, who was great. He was awesome to work with. And he's a great dude too. Like freaking love that guy. But to go in the ring with people like that and hold your own and put on what by all accounts a pretty decent freaking match, which is on my YouTube, that kind of lets you know, like, okay, like, I'm doing this like at a decently high level. I'm not trying to sound too egotistical, but I feel like I can get it done with anybody. And I feel like maybe it's not out of the cards to be on network TV, however that may be, like actual cable TV, not just on a YouTube channel. So whether that's with the NWA on Comet or, frickin' somehow AEW or even TNA someday, I feel like those things are possibly attainable, but it's like you got to know people and, people got to help you open the doors for you to kick down. So it's like, it's all a work in progress,
Yeah,
but I do feel like on the outskirts, that would be pretty cool. If I could do that, I would be like, all right, I made it. Knowing full well if I would have started at 18, if I would have started at 18, I probably would have made it, to the WWE or something like that. Because I do have a size and athletic ability, and I feel like I picked up the business pretty good.
Yeah, and I love that. They're lofty goals, and they're it's a reach for the stars type thing, but they're certainly realistic. Like you said, given your size, your ability, everything you have going for you, I don't think any of those things, are outside the realm of possibility. As we start to wind this thing down, and thank you again, you've been so gracious with your time. We're at the portion of the show that I ask my two favorite questions. The first one being, obviously, this is the Fans View podcast. I'm a fan that just sits in front of a microphone, but I always love to ask my guest, outside of the wrestling business, what are you a fan of?
I like lifting weights. I'm a dad, so I love that shit. I coach wrestling. I've been the middle school wrestling coach here in Marquette for the last couple of years. And then now both my boys will be at the high school, so I'm not going to be doing that next year, but I will be helping out with the high school team where I wrestled at. I'm going to be back on the sidelines this fall, coaching at the high school again. I spent over a decade coaching between youth football and high school football in the past. And my boys never played then. Like, neither of my boys started till they were freshmen. And now, like, my 15-year-old's 6'3", he's 200 pounds. I mean, he's like a better athlete than I ever was. And my 14-year-old is going to be a freshman, is 6 foot tall and about 150 pounds. So, like,
jeez,
they got some good size. And I'm super excited to be back involved with the Marquette high school football program, to be able to be really, like, on the sidelines for my boys, be up close and personal with it. I like being able to, grab them on the sideline and be like, hey, like, fix this or do that, or your offensive lineman is like setting hard this way, take an inside move. I played defensive line in college, and I got those like nice little tips and tricks I can help them with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Last but not least, and this is my favorite question. We just touched on it a little bit, but at this stage, not just of your career, but of life, like you said, you're a little bit older than most would be in your position, but how do you define success at this stage of your career and of your life?
I once said I just wanted to get to a point in wrestling where, like, my peers respected me for, like, so I just wanted to learn how to work to a point where people are like, okay, that guy is good, he can work. Like, that's all I really wanted. So I feel like just success is, to me at this point, is, just enjoying it and doing it as long as I can, right? If I can do this another 6 years or more, like, all right, awesome. If I can continue to have people fly me to California where it's sunny and warm when it's like 20 degrees and 40 inches of snow coming down in a 24-hour period, like, yes, please. So I feel like for where I started at, the age that I started at, which was like 38, 39 when I started training, or yeah, I was 39. I was 39, I think, when I worked my first match too. But for starting at that age, and inside of 5 years being able to get to the point, like I said, people will fly me places to wrestle at their shows, being ranked on lists in front of people that, have done this way longer than me, and, kind of becoming kind of one of those people that when you talk about independent wrestling, people know who you are, being out in Las Vegas WrestleMania week and running into people that I mean, I knew who they were, but I'd never met them before. And when you introduce yourself, oh yeah, I know who you are. It's like, oh wow, cool. Like people know me at this point. Like I've been out and about enough, like where I get recognized in the pro wrestling scene. And I never thought that would really be a thing either, just being from Marquette, Michigan and starting so late in age and whatnot. So
absolutely. No, I love that answer. That's why it's always my favorite question, because it really gets to the core of who the guest is. One thing I have to talk to you, that's usually the last question, but since we have you get a bonus question. While it's not sunny California and it's not Vegas, you will be in the peach state of Georgia, Augusta, Georgia, actually Evans, Georgia, to be
hell yeah.
specific. August 1st and 2nd, Saturday and Sunday, I believe, for Authentic Championship Wrestling. It's a new company getting started out here in the Southeast in the CSRA. How excited are you to be a part of a brand new promotion, start just getting their feet wet, and you are on the first card? What does that mean to you?
I love it. I love the fact that, I've been in contact with the promotion. I mean, almost instantly when they launch their social media stuff. I think they're doing a great job. I'm excited to be a part of it. I think he's booking a great show right now. So if he pulls off the execution, I think he's gonna have a great product here. I'm excited for my match. I'm gonna stomp the shit out of somebody down there. And luckily I love peaches, like I could eat a peach for hours. So it's like one of my favorite fruits. So I'm really excited about that too. Get down to Georgia, get a bushel of peaches, hang out at my hotel, wrestle a couple times. Hopefully there's a pool or something nearby, or maybe a beach. I don't know. I like the sunshine.
I love it. And I did want to let you know that I was looking at Authentic Championship Wrestling's Instagram, and I saw your opponent, Dion Summers.
Yes.
He commented, "I'm about to show Sampson why it's summertime all the time." And I just wanted to see if you had a response for Mr. Summers.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, summertime all the time. Yeah, I don't know. I have nothing to say to that other than maybe laugh a little bit. He needs to check the resume. I think that's what I said. Check the resume. And again, just another kid I'm gonna have to teach how to wrestle, and it's gonna be a painful experience. It's not going to be a fun one for him. So this summer might be a little bit of a drag.
Love it. I love it. These young bucks, they don't understand the term hard head makes for a soft ass, but I think he might learn on August 1st right there in Evans, Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, we are so excited to see you make your debut there at ACW, at Authentic Championship Wrestling in Evans, Georgia. For people that might be in the area, that is going to be on Washington Road, Evans, Georgia, Saturday, August 1st and Sunday, August 2nd. They're actually going to be doing some TV tapings, so go check that out. I think the bell rings at 7 o'clock, and you can go to acwmayhem.eventbrite.com for your tickets and see Sampson teach these young bucks a lesson or two.
Yes. Yeah.
Sampson, you have been absolutely wonderful and so very gracious with your time. Hopefully we can connect while you're in Georgia, and we'll have you on again, brother.
Yeah, anytime.
But for now, where can fans follow you? Be it social media, any merchandise, just kind of keep up with what you're doing next.
Yeah, Sampson Pro on Facebook, and then it's at Sampson's here on Instagram. And I've got shows coming up tomorrow in Canada with CWE, Canadian Wrestling Elite. Great company, one of my favorites to work for. I would go down into the Milwaukee area for my first time. Well, actually, for the first time with Brew City Wrestling, which is a pretty well-known Wisconsin company, owned by Frankie DeFalco. I just wrestled for Under the Lights, a Northern Wisconsin promotion, for the first time this past weekend. I'll be going back there in July in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. July 17th, Los Angeles. Hoping to be booked again in LA in mid-August, I think the 15th. UPW, first ever casino show, July 25th, Marquette, Michigan, Ojibwa Casino. we're going to be at the state fair, the UP State Fair, I think August 23rd or 5th or something. We'll have to, if you want to go check the UPW socials, it'll have the correct dates on there. I don't have them offhand. So UPW is rocking and rolling. We're doing big things. We just put like just about 1,200 people in the Lakeview Arena. Had Mick Foley come out in the main event as Cactus Jack. You know, it was like the Cactus Jack return. It was a great show. So we're just hot and rolling right now. We're going to keep all that momentum going, and I'm going to keep all my momentum going and see where it ends up.
Hell yeah. I love that. Guys, make sure to go follow him on Instagram. I'm going to have all of his social links tagged down in the description of the YouTube video. Go show him some love. This is going to be the summer of Sampson, people. If you're in LA, if you're in the Milwaukee area,
Right.
if you're in the Midwest, if you're in Georgia, come see the machine. He's going to kick some ass, take some pictures, meet some fans, and we're just going to have a good time. Sampson, again, thank you for your time.
July
Guys,
11th. July 11th, NWA Chicago. Come check that out.
there it is.
Telling you.
There it is. Guys, you
Telling
heard
you.
the man. You heard the man.
Smacking
You don't
people.
want to make him angry.
That's right.
You don't want to make this man angry. So go show some love. Go show some support. Make sure to follow the podcast. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. My big ass face is on there. Show some love to Sampson. Show some love to the Fans View podcast. And most importantly, guys, at the end of the day, don't forget to call your mom.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're going to be joking me.